Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the third webinar of our uh, bird identification webinar series. This one being shorebirds identification. For those who don't know me, my name is Hope Hill, and I am the Carbon and Biodiversity Project Coordinator with the Lands and Resources Mushkegowuk Council. Uh, uh, these bird identification webinar series is hosted by Mushkegowuk Council in collaboration with Birds Canada. And I am joined here today with Clea and Graham uh, from Birds Canada, who will be leading us through shorebirds identification. Uh, so we will be recording this session for those who aren't able to make it today and for you to refer back to it at a later time. It will be on our Lands and Resources Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So look for it the days following this webinar. We will have a question and answer period at the end of your presentation, but feel free to put your comments or question in chat, or when it's time, you'll be able to raise your hand and talk with your mic on. So with that, I will just pass it right over to Clea and Graham to get us started. Thanks.
Awesome. Do you see my presentation on the screen?
Yeah, looks good.
Perfect. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for attending this session. My name is Clea. And so today I'm going to try to give you clues and tips on how to identify shorebirds that you might encounter on James Bay and Hudson Bay coast. So I'm working with Birds Canada at the Saints in the North program, and I'm the conservation and monitoring biologist for the team. And today with me is Graham Sorensen, the program manager. He's going to help me and support me in this presentation and help answer questions in the chat. So if you have questions that is burning your lips, please feel free to send them in the chat and we can already start answering them. And we will have more time at the end of the presentation to answer it too. So every few years, Birds Canada and Environment Canada publish a report called the States of Canada's Birds, and it's showing how the birds are doing based on recent data. So we know that several bird groups are declining, but one of the most severe declines is happening to shorebirds. And since 1980s, there has been an alarming decline over 42% for shorebirds across Canada. But the steepest decline occurs among shorebirds that nest in the Arctic, with a decline of 54%. And some populations of some species, like the Hudsonian godwit, for example, have fallen by over 90%. So there really is an urgent need of monitoring and protecting shorebirds and their habitat. Now let's talk a little bit about James Bay importance for shorebirds. First, you need to know that shorebirds are amazing travelers. Most species are going to breed in North America and spend the winter in South America. So they're going to make this long journey twice every year with just a few stops along the way. In spring, they're going to begin their northbound migration, traveling from south to north to breed. And they also need to time their arrival perfectly so they can reach the Arctic just when the snow melts and when the insects become abundant. So they can provide food for themselves, to breed, and then for the chicks. Then after breeding and raising their young, they're going to head back south during the fall migration. So during both spring and fall migration, many shorebirds are going to stop in James Bay to refuel. They're going to feed on the mudflat. That's usually where you can see them. But also you can see some species spending the entire summer in James Bay as they're going to nest there. So really, James Bay and also the coast of Hudson Bay is incredibly important area for so many shorebird species. But shorebirds can be very challenging to identify. And I think this photo is a great example and really speaks for itself. It was also taken along the James Bay coast. So many species are small, they are brown, they look very similar to one another. And their plumage also change throughout the year. So birds are going to look quite different in breeding and non-breeding seasons. And in James Bay, you are going to encounter birds in breeding plumage, non-breeding plumage, and everything in between. So that makes identification even more trickier. Also, as I said, shorebirds are stopping in James Bay as a huge groups. They are often seen from a distance. They are moving quickly. They are mixed together as huge flocks. So it makes identification even more challenging. But don't worry, we are going to look at that together. So first thing that helps with shorebirds identification is to avoid focusing on plumage right away. That might sound counterintuitive because usually our eyes are attracted to colors and patterns, but really with shorebirds, we want to funnel down the list of possibilities and we want to start looking at the bird's shape, and that's really going to help you at first. So begin by looking at the overall size. Is it a small, medium, or large bird? Then you can look at its shape. Is it compact? Is it stocky? Or is it more elongated with longer legs and a longer neck? And finally, you can pay attention to specific body parts such as the bill shape and length also, the leg color, and the length of the wing and the tail feather. So as I said, there is lots of shorebird species and many have similar plumage, especially in non-breeding season. So focusing on the size and the shape first can quickly narrow down your list and then make identification more easier. Another big clue is the bill. So you can ask yourself, is the beak short or long? Is it straight? Is it slightly curved? Is it curved downward or curved upward? The bill shape with the shape of the bird together can quickly point you towards a particular group of birds, and then you can narrow down with the plumage. So now we're going to dive into species-specific characteristics, and we're going to start with large shorebirds. So the rainbow I find is a very good example of how to apply the clues I just gave you for identification. It is a large shorebird. You can see it's 44 centimeters length. And if you are looking at the bill, it is a very long bill with a down curve to it. So those two characteristics itself are usually enough to identify the rainbow. Now, if you want to look more closely at its plumage, you can see a scraped crown and a pale eyebrow. And in flight, the white belly is also visible and clear. But really, that bill is the main characteristic with its size. Now we're going to look at godwits. We're going to see that you can encounter two species of godwits in James Bay. And just by applying shapes and bill clue, you can determine already that you are looking at a godwit. So it is a large shorebird with a long bill that is this time slightly upturned. So look at this picture quickly because I'm going to show you I'm going to describe the two godwit species, and then you're going to tell me which species is which on this picture. So pay attention. So first, the Italian godwit. The first thing that you can notice on the breeding plumage, males are especially distinctive. They have a really rich dark burnt orange color on the underparts. The bill is bicolor. It's pretty long. It has orange at the base and a dark tip. And in both plumage, you can see that the tail has a black tip to it. And in non-breeding plumage, the bird becomes much paler. This happens with most shorebirds. In his like plain gray with a white belly, but it has this clear white supercilium that the other godwit species doesn't show. And also when in flight, you can see that the Italian godwit shows a white rump patch that is also very typical. And you can see this in both breeding and non-breeding plumage. Then we have the marble godwit. In breeding plumage, it has less contrasting color than the Italian godwit. It also has this long, slightly upturned bill, which is orange and black in breeding plumage. The marble godwit is larger than the Italian godwit, and in breeding plumage, it's overall like brown and beige, with barring above and below. And in non-breeding plumage, the bill is slightly more pink, than the Hudsonia godwit, and the back remains a darker brown with lighter bearing, and the belly shows more of a cinnamon wash color when it was more white for the Hudsonia godwit. So now I hope you can tell on the next picture with the two godwits next to each other, which one is on the left and which one is on the right. So is it the Hudsonia godwit on the left and the marble godwit on the right? And to give you a tip, both birds are in non-breeding plumage on the picture. I don't see the chat right now, so I'm just going to give you a few seconds to answer. Just write A or B in the chat. Let's look at the features together. The bird on the left has more pink on the bill. The underparts are more of a cinnamon color. And the bird on the right has a clear white eyebrow that the other one doesn't have. And you can see a black tip on the tail. So if you answered B, then you're right. It is the marble godwit on the left and the Hudsonia godwit on the right. It's easier when they are next to each other, but when they are not, it's trickier. Now let's look at the Wilson snipe. The snipe has a very typical shape. It is more of a medium-sized shorebird. It has a very compact body with a short neck, short legs, and the bill is very long. It is quite thick and it's also very straight, and it has a large eye compared to the size of its head. The head is stripped and the belly is mostly wide, but you can see on the flanks that there is like strong bearing, black and white bearing on the flanks. And on the back, you can see 4 paler lines that goes down the back. And also another characteristic is the tip of the tail that is orange. But really like the shape of this bird is very typical. Also the legs are like greenish. And when they're in flight, even though the legs are not long, the tail is so short and the bird is so compact that the legs goes past the tail. But really that long straight bill and the shape is gonna make you say it's a snipe. Then let's look at the short-billed dowitcher. It's a medium-sized shorebird with a long and quite thick and straight bill that is like kind of greenish at the base and black at the tip. It has relatively long legs, and in breeding plumage, the belly, the neck, and the face show a warm orange wash, and the back is more golden and very heavily barred. While in non-breeding plumage, the bird becomes much paler, with darker and more uniform flanks and reduced contrast, but you can still see the barred pattern on the back. And in flight, the dowitcher have like a white patch in the middle of the back that is very typical of the dowitchers. Let's try to see if this video is gonna work. Okay. So just wanted to show you a characteristic of the dowitcher is their feeding behavior. It is often described as a sewing machine movement, and it's very typical from this bird. Now we're going to look at yellowlegs. There is 2 species of yellowlegs, both extremely similar. So they both have an elongated body shape, a long neck, long yellow bright legs, and a bill that is pretty thin. They are overall gray, like uniform gray upper parts with a white belly, and they are pretty hard to differentiate, especially when they are not next to each other. So first thing, the main difference is the size. And as the name suggested, the greater yellow legs is bigger than the lesser yellow legs. But if you don't have the chance to see them next to each other, then the size itself is not super helpful, like not always. So the other trick you want to look at is the length of the bill. The greater yellow leg has a bill that is longer than the size of its head, about like 1.5 times, where the lesser yellow leg has a shorter bill and it's also a bit thinner, and the length of the bill is about the size of its head. So now I'm nice. Let's look at them next to each other. And if you want to take the chance to write in the chat, is it the greater yellow legs on the left or on the right? And where is the lesser yellow legs? You can. I think it's pretty obvious when they are next to each other. So, of course, we have the greater yellow legs on the left, the lesser yellow leg on the right. And again, you can see that the length of the bill is really telling. Of course, like on a picture, you can draw on it, and so it's even easier than on the field with binoculars, but overall you can tell. Next step, we can look at sandpipers. It is a group that is a bit more trickier to work with because there is lots of similar species. So first, we're going to look at the solitary sandpiper. It is a medium-sized shorebird, and it has a very similar shape as the yellow leg. So in breeding plumage, the legs are yellowish-greenish, so that can confuse them with the yellow legs. But you can see that the bill is like bicolor. There is yellow and black. And also they have this bold eye ring that really stands out. And overall, the plumage is more similar than the yellow legs. It has like a dark ridge brown back with some white speckles. And in flight, the belly is very white and the underwing are very dark. Now let's look at the spotted sandpiper. So as its name suggests, it shows bold dark spots on the breast in breeding adults, which contrast with the white belly underneath. Also, they have a really bright orange bill with a black tip that is very typical of the species. And in flight, you can really see those bold dark spots on the white belly. And also you can see a broad white underwing, like a band that is visible. And the legs are more like pink on this bird. Here again, I'm going to try to show a video. Whoops. Oh, yeah, sometimes it does that. Well, I'll show you it later. So now the stilt sandpiper. It's also a medium-sized shorebird that can be recognized by the very long legs. So also like the name is pretty descriptive on this one. But also the bill is pretty long, slightly decurved. It's pretty hard to tell, but you have a slightly downcurved bill. And also there is a small bulb at the tip. And the legs are really long and like kind of yellow greenish. The bird's underpart are heavily bared, and so you don't have like this clean white belly. It's heavily bared like all across. And you also can see some chestnut spots on the crown, on the cheek, and also between the eye and the bill. And in flight, the stilt sandpiper shows a white rump and a white underwing, and you can see that the legs extend well beyond the tail. Now we're going to look at the pectoral sandpiper. It's also a medium-sized shorebird with a relatively long neck, and so it's giving it this more like upright appearance and more elongated. It has a slightly drooping bill that is like orange at the base and darker at the tip, and also yellowish, a little bit orange legs. In breeding plumage, the breast is boldly streaked with brown, so it really creates a sharp contrast with a clean white belly, almost like a line. And so this strong division is very distinctive. And also in flight, you can see the white belly contrasting clearly with the darker, heavily streaked breast, and it's very typical of the pectoral sandpiper. While in non-breeding plumage, it shows less contrast, but you can still see some bearing on the chest, and the belly is still very, very white, and it has yellow-greenish legs, and it keeps this orange and black bill. Now the next three species are small sandpipers, and they can be very confusing. So the first one is the right-wing sandpiper. In both plumage, it has kind of a white eyebrow. It's not always super obvious, but in breeding plumage, it has a small orange spot at the base of the bill. Also in both plumage, you can see that the bill is slightly down curved, which is going to help with identification between like the small sandpipers. And also the flanks shows fine streaking in both plumage. And so these are like the main characteristics. But in flight, it's really more easy to say when you see a white-rump sandpiper, it have the distinctive white rump. As you can see on the picture, you can see it in both plumage, and it's like one of its most important identification features. And really, when you see a sandpiper with the white rump, you can tell it's a white-rump sandpiper, as its name say. Next, we have the semi-palmatid sandpiper, also a small shorebird. It is like very round and very compact. Many people say, oh, it's very cute, like it's like a ball. It has like a very short neck and a small head, and the bill is short and very straight this time. You don't have any curve. In breeding plumage, it shows a warm brown back with fine scaling and some streaking on the breast, but less than the right-wing sandpiper. I just realized I forgot to mention on the right-wing sandpiper, you can see that the wing goes past the tail. That gives a little bit more of an elongated shape, where on the semi-palmatid sandpiper, the wing doesn't go past the tail, so it has more of this round shape. And in non-breeding plumage, the bird becomes much paler again, with a more uniform gray brown above and a cleaner white belly. And it has less breast markings than the white-winged. And the last one that we are going to see, actually, no, it's not the last one. We have one more after. For the small sandpipers, this one is the least sandpiper. It is the smallest shorebird. It has a slightly drooping bill, and the legs are also yellowish greenish. That's going to be the main difference between this bird and the semi-palmatid. And also, you can see that it's more rufous color on its back. And in non-breeding plumage, it's more gray. But it has those greenish, yellowish legs in both plumage, and the shape of the bill is what's gonna help you. So now it's your time again. And those three are one of the toughest to tell apart. Like to me, it took some time to really understand how to differentiate them. So next to each other, you can try to guess which one is the right-wing sandpiper, which one is the semi-palmatid sandpiper, and which one is the least sandpiper. And so we're gonna look again quickly at how to differentiate them now that they are next to each other. So the right-wing sandpiper has more of this elongated shape. The wings goes past the tail. You can see that orange spot at the base of the bill. The flanks have more streaking, while the semi-palmatid sandpiper is more of a ball shape. Some brown color on the back, but they all have that. And the least sandpiper has also some curve on the bill, and the legs are yellowish greenish, that are very typical. Another small shorebird is the sanderling. It is also very small, compact, with a short and stout black bill. And its appearance changes dramatically between the breeding and non-breeding season, as you can see on the pictures. So in breeding plumage, it has a rich mix of dark brown and orange on the head, the neck, and the back. And it's contrasting really well with the clean white belly. So really, that it's a very contrasting bird. When in non-breeding plumage, it becomes one of the most light color shorebird. And I like to call it like the snowball shorebird. Like it looks like it has the back is light gray and the belly is very white. It gives a like a bright, almost snowy appearance to me. So yeah, it's easier to tell this one apart from the other. Now, if we are looking at the red knot, you might have heard of this bird a lot as it is endangered. So the red knot is a medium-sized shorebird. It has a bulky, compact shape and also a stout bill. In breeding plumage, the adult shows a rich salmon orange underparts that extends across the face, the neck, and the belly. But the undertail is white, and you can really see that, especially in flight. And in non-breeding plumage, the bird becomes much paler again, with like pale gray upper parts and a whitish belly. And often you can see some gray bearing on the chest and on the flanks. Also, the legs changes color between the seasons, so they have black legs in breeding plumage and more like greenish legs in non-breeding plumage. And in flight, in non-breeding season, the red-nose have like a right rump with a pale gray tail. Now let's look at the dunlin. The dunlin is also a stocky medium-sized shorebird, but this time it has a long, black, slightly drooping bill, and his shape and the shape of the bill is very typical. And in breeding plumage, it is unmistakable. It has a distinctive black belly patch and also a very contrasting bright orange back. So this bird doesn't look like any other, especially in breeding plumage. In non-breeding plumage, you're more going to rely on the shape and the bill because it becomes much paler. It is, again, more like gray, light brown color. Often you're going to see, especially in James Bay, like an in-between plumage. So you can still have some black, like a black patch, but like that is less contrasting, but you can still see it sometimes in James Bay. But really the drooping bill and the stocky shape in non-breeding plumage is what's going to help you. Now let's look at plovers. First, the black-bellied plover. It's a pretty large and stocky plover with a really short and thick bill that's very typical of the plovers in general. They all have this kind of bill shape that is more thick than the other shorebirds. So during the breeding season, they have this solid black face, throat, and belly, and they have this big white stripe along the side of the forehead down to the side of the neck and the body. And they have a white undertail that you can see in flight and when walking on the beach. And also their back is patterned with black and white. So that gives this bird like a very contrasted appearance. It's also called sometimes a silver bird. And in non-breeding plumage, again, becomes much paler with gray upper parts, but it keeps this white undertail that is typical. And especially the best way to identify it in non-breeding plumage is if you see it in flight, you can see this black armpit that is going to stay in non-breeding plumage too. And that's like a key field mark to it. A similar species is the American golden plover. So in breeding plumage, you can see that it's pretty similar. Adults have the same black face and underparts with the white stripe on the side. But this time, though, the undertail is black too, and the back is more of a golden color. So really, like, if you're not sure, like sometimes with the lighting of the color of the back, this undertail, if it's black, if it's an American golden plover, if it's white, it's a black-bellied plover. In non-breeding plumage, though, it's harder to tell, but it doesn't have this white undertail, but it has a white eyebrow that the black-bellied plover doesn't have. And also, there is no black armpit on the American golden plover. That's going to be the biggest difference in non-breeding plumage. So now it's your time again. We have, again, both next to each other, which is often easier. So now you can try to guess A or B. Is it an American golden plover on the left and a black-bellied plover on the right? Or is it the opposite? We can see that the left bird has more of a white undertail. And it's a bit bigger too. And I find that on this picture, you can see the clean white eyebrow on the bird on the right. Yeah, so really those two. So if you answered B, you're right, it's a black-bellied plover on the left and an American golden plover on the right. And here is another one. Again, it's in non-breeding plumage, I'm not nice. But is it an American golden plover or a black-bellied plover that you can see here? I don't see the chat, so I'm just leaving some seconds for you to think and answer A or B. But it is an American golden plover. And you can say because you don't see any black armpit, it is like very uniform on the wing and the belly. So you don't have these distinctive features of the black-bellied plover. So it is an American golden plover. Then our last two plover species, we have the semi-palmated plover and the killdeer. So the semi-palmated plover is small, compact shorebird, again a short bill, and the bill has bright orange at the base and a black tip, and also its legs are pretty short and also bright orange. It has also a yellow eye ring, and as you can see, it has a single black breastband, while the killdeer on the right side has two black breastbands. Also, the killdeer doesn't, like, it has a uniform color on the bill. This one has a red eye ring, and it has overall a more elongated body shape. It has longer legs, a longer tail, and also the neck. So the body shape is quite different, and the two breastbands are gonna differentiate those two birds. And finally, we have only two species left. The ruddy turnstone. It's a medium-sized, stocky-shaped shorebird. Also, I find that the shape of the bill is very typical. It's fairly wide at the base, and it's very pointy at the end, more than the other ones. And as its name suggests, this bird is flipping rocks when it's foraging. So it's often found in like rocky shoreline, more than on the flats. Also, it has short, bright orange legs and a clean white belly. It has like very specific pattern on the neck and the breast, and the back is also well patterned with brown and black. And when they're in flight, you can see a little bit like for the Dowitcher, but their size is so different that you cannot confuse them. But they also have this long white patch in the middle of the back. And finally, we have the redneck phalarope. That is, it has a very thin and straight bill, and also it feeds in deeper water than other shorebirds. So often you're gonna see them swimming in circle and stirring up prey, basically. And in breeding plumage, the head is like a dark gray to black, and on the side of the neck and on the breast, it is like a rich chestnut color, when also you have the chin that is white, that is very distinctive. And on the back, it's a very dark, like charcoal, a little bit black, and buff stripes. When in non-breeding plumage, I find this bird still has lots of contrast, but is more like a white and black contrast, but you can still find those buff stripes. And that's it for me. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I hope you can remember some of those clues, and that you can now identify shorebirds a bit better and a bit easier.
Great. Thank you, Clea, so much for showing us some coaching tips for identifying shorebirds. And thank you, Graham, for moderating the chat. So now I guess we'll open it up to any questions. I believe most of them were answered in chat, but if anyone wants to raise their hand or unmute themselves to ask any questions, Clea and Graham are both here, so now's a good opportunity to do so.
I'd like to ask a question, but I'm not sure how to raise my hand on my Zoom program here.
Yeah, no worries.
My question was for, I guess, more general was, do any of these birds actually dive underwater to feed? I guess the very last one you mentioned, it feeds in deeper water and stirs kind of the bottom up or something. But then I thought, well, do any of these birds actually dive, or are they all kind of from the surface, just back to the bottom kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the follow-up is gonna dive its head, but not fully diving. Like none of the shorebirds are fully gonna dive, like the seabirds, for example, especially like from flight diving. They are all gonna like more like put the beak in the sand and like try to find those invertebrates. But the redneck follow-up is gonna go a little bit deeper.
Okay. That you immediately, I think of another question. So they're kind of straining the contents of they stir up with their bill, eh? Are they trying to grab little organisms, or are some grab and some filter feeders, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
they're grabbing, and the length of the bill is really gonna help them like go at different depths. And so some with the longer drooping bill are gonna go way deeper, looking like getting more like worms kind of invertebrates, where some others are gonna get more like surface invertebrates, especially for the plovers. They have a very short bill. So yeah, they are not going to feed on the same invertebrates based on the shape of their bill, basically.
And I may as well just ask my last question and I'll shut up. But so they have sensors on the tips of the bills, then if they can get for worms or things they find, so they can taste them at the tip of their bill.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think really sensitive tips of the build. I know especially some of the longer build ones is where I've kind of read about it more, like dowitchers and woodcock and snipe. The tip of the bill is surprisingly flexible, and so when they're putting their in, they can feel pressure changes and find worm tunnels or things as they're like plunging it into the sand or the mud. And so picking up on pressure and then finding their prey that way.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for Clea and Graham? We have a question in chat. I'll just read it. Kimberly asked rationale for the population decline. So I guess is there any rational reason for the population declines in the shorebirds?
Showing my screen quickly again. So yeah, habitat loss will be the first one. And so several ways that habitat is lost for shorebirds. One of them will be coastal erosion with more storms and more waves. The other one is isostatic rebound. So the land is basically going back up after the glacier melted, and so the pressure is released. And also, as the climate is warming, we have more vegetation growing, so we have less mudflat basically, and so less invertebrates. And so that is going to reduce the food availability for them. So overall, the reduction of the mudflat, because of the vegetation expansion and the coastal erosion together, is going to give like less friendly habitat to forage. And also because of the changes in water temperature, the invertebrate population is going to change. And so maybe some shorebirds were like very more like specific and specialists of some invertebrates, and so they're not going to be able to find the same resources anymore.
I wanted to just add, so all of these factors that Clea just mentioned are happening kind of across the both breeding and non-breeding range for shorebirds. But one of the challenges shorebirds face that other species don't face is that there's fewer good coastal habitats in between where they breed and where they winter in the south. And so they're kind of pinched into these smaller and smaller areas as these factors, and especially in places like US where there's a ton of coastal development, kind of shrink the amount of habitat that they can do their kind of migration stopovers on. And so while songbirds can feed in a little tiny park in a city, shorebirds don't have that kind of big open coastal habitat that they need to make those migrations. And so there's all these things in the breeding range and in the wintering range, but also on stopovers on the way.
And also there is some mismatch in the phenology now because of the temperature rising. So like the shorebirds are going to try to match their arrival on breeding grounds with the insect abundance. And so because insects can arrive earlier now, maybe they're not going to arrive on time. And so they're going to miss this peak of abundance and not being able to feed their youngs. So it is like a wide range of reasons that makes them declining.
Perfect. And I was just answering a question in the chat as well relating to the recordings of the webinars. They're not posted yet, but they'll likely be posted next week. And when they are, they will be posted to the Mushkegowuk Council Lands Resources Facebook page and YouTube channel. So stay tuned. They'll be out shortly. Does anyone have any other questions?
Hi, it's Kimberly here again, and I similar to the other fellow, I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand.
Yeah, no worries.
Would there ever be an opportunity? I'm just thinking like next spring we have here in Nipigon a group that gets together. It's called the Dorian Birding Festival, and I missed the first two sessions here, but just listening to this one, would there be a future opportunity to do some kind of like a presentation like this at one of those festivals? It would generally be in an evening, and who would I reach out to make that happen, or see if that could happen in the future?
Well, I would say maybe where is it based? I would say Mushkegowuk, but
It is called Nipigon. It's in Ontario, and that's why I was thinking even do it remotely, like similar to what you're doing here, close to Thunder Bay in Ontario.
okay. Yeah. I think you can either contact like Birds Canada or Mushkegowuk, and I think my email was on one of the first slides. I can give it back here if you want to reach out. I can share
that would be
it.
wonderful.
Yeah. Either me or Graham.
At birdscanada.org. Okay.
Yeah, and if anyone has further comments or questions, but don't have Graham or Clear's email or don't know how to contact them down the line, you can reach out to research@mushkegowuk.ca and we'll be able to direct you or answer questions as needed. I'll also put that in the chat. All right, I guess final call for any questions or comments, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, well, I just want to say thank you so much to Clea and Graham for joining us today and giving us a presentation on identifying shorebirds. This is our third and final webinar of the bird identification webinar series. So I also just want to thank our other presenters from the other webinars, Lucas and Thomas, also with Birds Canada. They've been great. Although this is the end of the bird identification webinar series, we still have other webinars coming up. Next week, we will be having a webinar again with Birds Canada on the MOGIS wildlife tracking system. It will again be next Friday, same time as these webinars, 11 a.m. to noon. So feel free to join us for that one as well. And with that, we'll give you guys back some time to your day. And just want to say thank you for joining us and have a good weekend. Thank you, everybody.
Oh.